Shemai, Sitaki, Croeso, Chris, Doi, what is cracking, ladies, gents, boys, girls, anybody who is anyone. Today we are doing a top 5 of Fighting Fantasy's Shield series books, and I thought it'd be a little bit of fun. It'll be a little bit of fun to sort of punctuate the series before I go from the Shield series books onto the Scholastic series. So we got this little top 5, and hopefully you're going to enjoy. Now, you might be asking, what is the Shield series? Now, the Shield series is just a series of reprints that went from 2009 to 2012, and it's basically just the reprints of popular books from the initial series, and then some newer ones written by Jonathan Green. Now, the newer adventures tend to be quite good, because Jonathan Green, he's some sort of powerhouse. Everything he writes tends to be pretty good. But then they got like a mishmash of all the good books from the previous series. Now, according to Wiki, there's 16 books in this series, with Blood of the Zombies not really being part of the series, but being part of the series. I don't really know what's happening there. It is a book that I would have loved to have covered on my channel, but yeah, you know, it is what it is. But obviously, if there's 16 books and we've only got 5 in this video, a lot of them aren't really going to be mentioned. And it does go without saying, this list is very subjective, so, you know, obviously I know there are a good few fan favourites that just aren't on this list, that I didn't even consider to be on this list. It's nothing personal. I like all the books. By and large, I do actually like all the books. It's just this is my top 5. So I think we should get right into it. So without any, well, it is in order. We're going from 5 to 1, so let's get into number 5. Now, number 5 is Curse of the Mummy. Now, Curse of the Mummy, it's just an outstanding adventure. It was originally published under Puffin, then it went to Wizards, and then it was reprinted again for the Wizard Shield series. This one has been around the block a few times. It's just that Egypt is cool, man. Egypt is really cool, and it's pretty much in a fantasy Egypt. What's not to love? It's awesome. You go through pyramids, you fight mummies, you fight poison scorpions, and you have a poison meter that you have to manage throughout the adventure. It is really cool. It's really interesting. I love that. There's something awesome about fantasy Egypt that it's just amazing. What's not to love about fantasy Egypt? And I suppose this is why this is on the list compared to a lot of the others. This was something different, this was something new, this was something special. Managing your poison is actually quite interesting. And the creatures, the monsters, I suppose demons and gods that you fight throughout the adventure itself make it quite interesting. And this one was written by Jonathan Green, so you know it's good. So that's number 5 on the list. Let's talk about number 4. Number 4 is Death Trap Dungeon. Now, Death Trap Dungeon is another book that has been around the block a few times. It was originally published under Puffin, then it went to Wizards, now it's been reprinted. And I think it's going to be reprinted, or well, it would have already been reprinted under Scholastic. So this is a book that it's just good. It's a really good book. There's Death Trap Dungeon. It's this horrible little dungeon where you get a lot of money if you win. And the whole point is, you're not going to win, so the price is actually quite high. But what you find is that it's a very fair adventure. Now, a lot of these adventure books, they tend to have quite unfair game over sequences where maybe you'll drink from a puddle of water that's actually a bubbling pit of acid, and the author just decided not to tell you. But with this one, everything's quite fair. You know, you got some obvious wrong choices that are very obviously going to kill you, and they do kill you. Then you got some obvious safe choices that don't kill you. If you get what I mean, basically you don't get screwed over at all in this book. It is actually quite fair. And finding the gems to actually complete the book is something that you could do just by exploring. You know, every single branch sort of leads you back to the main story, and you just maybe encounter something new, you get a few new items. It's all just really fair, and it's nice and it's fun. I enjoyed this one. It's one of the first books that I actually read multiple times to just experience everything that the book had to offer. This is, unfortunately, it is number 4. It should, in an ideal world, be up number 1. But this book is just honestly phenomenal. I really enjoyed it, and you know, it's written by Ian Livingstone, so you know you're in for something good. Now we got number 3, and that is Night of the Necromancer, written by Jonathan Green. And this book's just awesome. You play as a ghost. How cool is that? You just play as a ghost, and that's just awesome as itself. But then the adventure itself is quite fun. You got this nice little twist, and even though the twist is easy to figure out, it's still a twist. You don't really get that in these books. The storytelling, as usual, by Jonathan Green is superb. So you have this amazing adventure, and it's originally published in the Shield series itself. You're not going to get, well, you wouldn't have read this back in the 80s, early 2000s. You would have read this with this series, and the book's awesome. It's dummy thick, 450 references, which you can't complain about. There is a lot to do in the book. All in all, it's just awesome. You play as a ghost. What's not to love about playing a ghost? That's cool. So I think we're going to talk about Well, we're going to talk about number 2. Number two is actually quite special because collecting the original Wizard series, it was one of the more expensive books. It was one of the rarer books that I had to get, and it is Howl the Werewolf. Now, this bad boy, it's just a really, really good book. It's about werewolves, what's not to love, and it's written by Jonathan Green, so you know you're going to get a healthy dose of lore, a healthy dose of story, and world building. It is just a superb book. It is number 2 for a reason, because it's just next level. It is something else, but also because it's incredibly interesting. As you are turning into a werewolf yourself, you develop different werewolf-like sort of traits, powers, strengths. You know, your nails might sharpen into claws, you might get night vision, you might be able to move really fast. It's all really interesting, and it blurs the line between man and monster or woman and monster, and it's just incredibly interesting. You know, there was a similar system in Night of the Necromancer, which I failed to mention, where you learn new ghostly powers, but with this one, it's just interesting. You know, it's a shame that you don't actually get to play as a werewolf. You sort of play as, like, sort of in between. You sort of play as one of those things from Resident Evil, the new one, where they look like werewolves, but actually they're just bio weapons, whatever. It is cool. It is amazing. And the atmosphere itself is just fantastic. It's very much like playing Bloodborne, and if you've played the game and then you read the book, you sort of get what I mean. It's got that gloomy, depressing atmosphere where you sort of have this overwhelming sense of dread. You never feel alone. You always feel as if someone's watching you through maybe like an alleyway, through a window of one of the various boarded up houses, and it's just creepy, it's unsettling, it's unnerving. You're sort of like, ooh, if you were in that position yourself, you wouldn't want to be. And that's great, because with the other books, it's fun to imagine yourself as the adventurer, going out and slaying giants, trolls, goblins. But with this one, it's sort of like, you wouldn't want to be turning into a werewolf. Now, we've all had our edgy teenager phase. For me, I preferred werewolves over vampires. A lot of people would prefer vampires over werewolves. I think it is always a toss-up between those two for some reason. And as funny as it is, when you grow up, you're like, oh yeah, I actually wouldn't want to be a werewolf. That sounds awful. It's a lot of work. You're going to have to pay for a lot of clothes. And the reality of being a werewolf just sucks. You know, you're just buying clothes constantly. You're constantly beating up chickens in the field in the middle of the night. Who wants that? You know, just, I mean, who wants to be a vampire, but who wants to be a werewolf? But in this book, it's awesome, it's cool, it's scary, it's tense. You're like running, and you're hoping that you can actually finish the book before you turn into a werewolf, and ooh, it is amazing. And that is why this book is number 2 on my list, because it is something next level. It is badass. So, number 2 on the list, Howl of the Werewolf by Jonathan Green. Number 1 is a book that, if you follow my channel, you already know. You know what number 1 is. Now, number one is City of Thieves by Ian Livingstone. Now, in this book, you find out that Zanbar Bone. Now, he is holding the town of Silverton hostage, and he set his moondogs in. Moondogs, they sound hilarious, they sound really silly, but it's quite a serious thing. And the first part of this book, where you find out about all this is very serious. But then when you actually get thrust into the adventure, you find that it's very silly, it's very fun. It turns into supermarket sweep. You're just running through a town, collecting various bits and bobs, enjoying the sights, enjoying the games, enjoying the various references. There's a reference to White Dwarf, which is the Games Workshop magazine, and it's just really fun. It's really funny, it's very light-hearted, it's very silly. But after the segment is over, it turns back to seriousness again. So it's like a sandwich, it's like a weird little sandwich, and it's just a fantastic story. It's a fantastic adventure. And I think it's always going to be my number 1 because of how fun it is. It's cute. And for the first time, when it comes down to Fighting Fantasy, you don't really have cute adventures. With this one, it is quite cute. You know, you're not really doing something that feels out of the ordinary. You're doing something that's very, like, ordinary, very normal, just in a fantasy setting. We've all been shopping. We haven't been fighting monsters, but we've all been shopping. And I find it very easy to relate, especially when I was a child, when maybe thinking way back when like my memory's a little bit fuzzy, you would go to some shops that seem weird and otherworldly, and it's just, this book really embodies that feeling, and it's something that I think we can all relate to, and it's really, really fun. So yeah, that's why City of Thieves is my top 1. It's my number 1 book. It's been given the gold medal because it's just superb. It's something next level. It's wholesome, it's silly, it's funny. So yeah, that is my top 5. Now feel free to say what books you enjoyed, what books maybe I didn't mention that you loved. Maybe put them in the comments. You know I missed out Creature of Havoc, Warlock of Firetop Mountain, Polymorpheus, Stormslayer. I missed out a few books because although I did thoroughly enjoy them, they weren't quite in my top 5. But feel free to tell me your top 5. I think it'd be interesting. It'd be nice to read through them. So yeah, that's about it for this video, ladies and gents. Now I'm not going to upload anything Fighting Fantasy related next week, purely because I'm going into the Scholastic series next, and the new adventures that I'm covering, there aren't many of them, and I don't really want to finish talking about Fighting Fantasy books as quick as possible, because I do actually really enjoy reading these books. So I want to kind of spread it out a little bit longer. I want to stretch it out a tiny bit longer just to keep talking about them, because although I sort of know what books I want to talk about once I finish talking about Fighting Fantasy, I want to talk about Fighting Fantasy as long as I can, because it's awesome and I enjoy it. It's something I like. So with that out of the way, hopefully you're going to stick around. Hopefully you're going to be here for when I talk about the Scholastic books. But if not, I hope you have a lovely life, a lovely day, a lovely week, a lovely whatever. Hopefully you just have a nice existence. So without further ado, guys, take care. Thanks for watching and goodbye.